I guess SARA was a culmination of all my experiences as well, going into politics, but it had a fundamental beginning, which I'll talk about. But this is important. When I was a chairperson of the post office, I had to report to a portfolio committee in Parliament, to a chairperson and the members of the portfolio committee who neither understood, were competent enough, and the level of education of the people that we've left in government really broke my heart. And that's where the disjuncture comes in. Because most of us who have had the privilege to be educated, to run our own businesses, to be exposed, we don't want to go back and serve in government. We leave it for anyone that really, some of them had nothing else really that they could do. And they end up in those critical positions where anywhere in the world are occupied by highly educated, highly technical people that are finally selected for public service. And same as how you select your best in the corporates and with interviews and all sorts of competency assessments, but it's not the same with us. And I saw that again when I was the chairperson of the Metropolitan Trading Company in the city of Johannesburg. And the same, it was even worse. The councillors that are running your city, the 70 billion rand city, that is supposed to give you income earning opportunities, basic services, your water, your energy, control how you get educated, how you travel on the roads, what your children are going to be taught in schools when they get there. Some of these people don't even have matric. And these are councillors that are supposed to run these major cities, metropolitan cities, because we have shunned public service. And for me, that began to pull me towards public service. And that's how I understood that in South Africa, unlike maybe many other countries, for you to be able to have that impact in terms of policy direction, how you participate in public service in terms of politics, you have to be part of a political party unless you're an independent candidate. That's our constitution. So for me to be able to be part of that, I had to be part of a political party so that I'm able to go back and contribute. That's how I joined COPE. But SARA, we sat with a lot of small parties back in July last year, because I was at the forefront of leading minority parties in the city of Johannesburg. If you follow the politics, how we left the government of multi-party government to the government of local unity. And we realized four fundamental things that have gone wrong in this country. And if any democratic government has failed in these four fundamental things, that government is not legit. It is not worthy to be a government that leads the people. Number one, any democratic government must be able to provide income-earning opportunities to its citizens. The current government has failed on that. You look at the unemployment job stats, they are very appalling.
Isn't that also part of the economy to do that? Government needs to facilitate the environment to make it easy to run businesses and start
Unemployment is not an accident. It's a product of the policies that the government is implementing. And that government, in facilitating that, must have the correct policies, must be able to drive the economic growth, and this government has failed. Two, a government that cannot provide homes for its citizens. That government is not a legit government. It's not a democratic government, and this government has failed. You look at the backlog of housing right now, over 3 million people are unhoused. Informal settlements are mushrooming everywhere, uncontrollable, and they become the source and a base for a lot of social ills that we're experiencing. The third test, a government that is not able to protect its citizens domestically. You see it in the level of crimes, in GBV, and many things that we're facing. You realize that this government has failed in its policing, in ensuring the safety and protection of its citizens. Fourth, a government that is not able to protect its citizens externally through its borders, through external threats. And our government has not been able to do that. You see it in the porous borders that we have. We cannot even control the influx of illegal immigrants or even those that are legal. We can't even document them properly. Our borders are unmanned, some of them. So those fundamental tests have failed. And if you look at any party that is contesting these elections, they're either standing on one or on all four of them. SARA, we went beyond to say, what we see as well is the moral decay. There is no moral clarity on what are the values that bind South Africans together. What do we stand and rally together as South Africans? Deeply divided nation. Mm-hmm. Unhealed wounds that keep festering and coming forth. We're divided along racial lines. We're divided along tribal lines. Young people are fighting old people now for jobs. So the divisions, they just keep spreading. So those are the things that as we came together with different minority parties, we said we need to then form some form of an alliance, because it's not one party that's going to bring a solution. It will take all of us coming from a diverse background, coming from our religious backgrounds, black, white, whatever that you bring to the table. All of us have to start to unite to say, what is it that we want to bring to the table? That was the foundation of SARA, and the policies that we then chose to push forward, we'll talk about.
Okay. So you spoke about how we have weakened the public service by not going into the public service as professionals. So how does one attract? What are your plans to attract professionals into the public service so that we can have a meritocracy as well as a public service that is not linked to politics, but linked to the service provision for people?
The three things that we have prioritized as South African Rainbow, and we stand on that as our core principles, it is the merit-based public service. And you look at the list that we've been able to advance to the IEC as people that have joined forces with us come and said, we want to be part of this. We've managed to advertise to unemployed graduates. We had over 250, I think, unemployed graduates that responded to our call to come into public service, because we have to make it attractive to them. We have to start to break down public service in terms of what does it entail. It's not about toy-toying on the streets, which many of us, you and me, may not resonate with. That is just part of a political party. Public service, it's really an honorable profession in any country. As I have said, if we don't have people that have the right qualifications in agriculture, for instance, the technical know-how, how are we going to manage to revive the agricultural sector in South Africa? We need you to come and give us the policies, the latest technology. How do we turn around? We have been struggling as South Africa just to roll out digital migration. That tells you, without you even having to look at who's in government, we don't have the right people with the technical skills in terms of technology, the advancement of 4IR, etc. We had a deputy president who could not even answer what 4IR is, let alone put policies and infrastructures and structures in place that will facilitate that. So that is to how do we make it attractive? How do we break it down to our young people to understand what is it that entails, and I'm talking public service as in the political space right now, being in the National Assembly, being in council, what are the portfolios that people are running there? And they're running serious portfolios. Chairpersons of infrastructure. These are people that should be understanding energy. How do we drive energy policies? Water crisis that we have. People don't even understand the crisis that we're in terms of water. And we are slowly moving to day zero because we don't have the competency that is going to allow us to put together the infrastructure to harvest water, to protect water, because South Africa is not a water-rich country. We have to have means. The polyhalid dams that were being built, corruption has come in and all of that. But we need technical guys that are going to come in and say, this is how we are going to deal with the water crisis, because that it fits into the policies of the economy as well. No one is going to invest when you don't have water, when you don't have power, when you don't have roads, because those are enablers. So Parliament, Council, provincial legislature, they drive the economic enablers of job creation,
economic growth.
yes, of really looking after our people effectively, etc., etc.
Yeah. So let's go to your gear policy. And I like that you've linked it to something that we're already familiar with. You call it growth, employment, accountability, and redistribution, unlike the normal gear that we might be familiar with. So what are you going to be doing for business to drive this economic growth? Because government doesn't drive growth. What are we going to see from your side?
The SARA gear, and we say this with full pride, that what worked, we take and improve upon. We are not here as SARA, as some geniuses that are thumb-sucking things that with, out of this world. Economic policies are economic policies wherever you go. They either work when you implement them, or when you choose a different path, they will not work. The reason we're where we are, and I kept saying it, the government drives economic policies that facilitates these levers or these fundamental enablers that drive growth. And we've seen the current government moving more to the social policies that are for socialism and all of that has collapsed Africa and many, many other countries. They have left the business-friendly policies that I'll talk about. SARA gear, we borrowed it from President Mbeki, and we have improved on it because conditions have changed in which the previous gear was implemented 1996 to 2008. If you look at where the country has gone since 2008 to 9, we've got high debt, unsustainable deficit in our fiscus. We have borrowed. If we don't stop this trajectory by 2025, statistics tells us that 5.8 trillion will be our borrowing. Just the last quarter, we had to borrow another 300 million. You know what it is for? To service debt. So we're in a debt spiral. We're no longer in a debt trap. So it is getting worse and worse. How do we get out of the debt trap? So the gear is supposed to enable us to get out of this debt trap, because as part of the debt trap, we have now lost control even in some of the policies that we want to implement. For example, energy. We are now dictated by the IMF what we should do with our energy. The just-in-time, the triple P. So some of the things that we could be harvesting our coal and making our power station work and providing energy for our people to enable the economy. So the SARA gear, G stands for growth. Under growth, number one, we're dealing with the debt. We need to reservice the debt. How are we going to deal with the debt? First, denationalization of state-owned entities. We have to put a full stop to the nationalization agenda because it has not worked and it is not working. ESCOM is a national entity. It is not working. It requires private sector, public partnerships, public-private partnerships that we need to put in place to make it work. Transnet has failed. It's a national entity. We require private partners to come in and put money, we modernize it, we turn it around. Our ports have collapsed. We require private partners to come in. The government does not have money to turn it around. We used to rank amongst the top 10 in the world in our ports in terms of efficiency, modern ports, etc. Everything that was going across Africa would land here. Right now, we've been overtaken by the Kenyas and many other countries. Because we've decayed, we're number 351st in terms of, I think it's a Ngura port. And many of our Cape Town ports as well have degraded to even ranked below 230 or so. So it shows you that the country needs help. Denel, I can name all the state-owned entities. I was the chairperson of the South African Post Office. We had private partners that wanted to come and work with government, modernize, put in their own money, retain the people that were there. But because of the vision that the current government has, we're at loggerheads with them. So one of our key enablers of the economy is denationalization. And we know that there are many private companies, whether local or overseas, that want to come and partner with us and make sure that we don't lose jobs. We modernize, we put technology, we make this infrastructure work. Right now, post office, we are left with white elephants. That whole beautiful infrastructure, there's no network like the post office in this whole country. You can reach any community, rural areas, And there were online companies, black young entrepreneurs that wanted to use this infrastructure, run their online companies and do wonderful things. Some of them wanted to turn them into some internet cafes, do innovations there, etc., and share profit with government. So ideas are there, but is there a will to do it? 2, what we want to do? We want under growth, implement a 24-hour economy. Mm-hmm. South Africa knows nightlife. We don't know night economy. Everywhere in the world, we compete with New York, we compete with Hong Kong, Tokyo, and all the first world countries. Singapore, they run a night economy. Immediately, you have created 3 shifts that halves the unemployment. When we live here, 5 o'clock, you and I and millions of South Africans, we're going to go home, put our feet on the table, switch on generations, and watch TV until 12 midnight. Other countries are taking advantage of different economies that are happening and time zones, and they're making things work. Hence, you see innovations coming up, business deals are being done. What are we going to do? We've got all of this beautiful infrastructure. Everyone who comes to Africa, who goes to other places, they land here at our airport. You know what they do? They sleep throughout the night with us. They could be out shopping. They could be out in offices, businesses, working with you and I, creating businesses, making sure that we are part of what is happening in the economy. But no, we don't have a night economy. 3rd, what are we going to do? For business especially, cut the taxes.
I'm a little bit worried about that one because we're already starting from a very small tax base. And there's so many demands on our taxpayers. So what's your suggestion on that?
The reason we've got such a small tax base, it's in line, it's not accident, it's in line with the unemployment rate. When they tell you that 76% of the people are unemployed, that should tell you that only 34% are employed. Those are your taxpayers in terms of people who come to corporates, in terms of people. And out of those 34%, I think the statistics are saying 12% of those, they earn enough to pay tax in this country. So we are carried by 12%, you and I, who earn enough to be tax assessed to pay income tax. So our tax is so low because of unemployment. These policies that we are implementing are bringing people back at work so that we don't have a high burden that you must now pay 45% of tax because you must carry service delivery for the rest of the 80% of the people in South Africa. And it's a high burden, high cost of living. You can't afford it. Hence, we even had to increase VAT. But once we're able to get more people at work, we can drop the income tax to 36%. That is in line with where people are in the world. Once we drop the corporate tax to 24%, we are now enabling businesses to start to focus on job creation. It will not be for free. There will be a condition. We're dropping the taxes because we want you to invest in employing people, put in measures in place to modernize your factories, because many corporates are crying on that. They have not even fully recovered from COVID, and taxes are still going up. SMMEs, for instance, most of them are taxed so high, the burden of labor laws on them, it's too high. I know because I was in business. Just to attempt to comply with your tax requirements, with your labor laws, etc., you have to pay somebody 200,000, whether it's per annum if you're a small company, or some of us, because we were really growing into being a medium to large entity, 200,000 per annum you must pay to accountants, to this and that, just to make sure that you tick the compliance boxes. All of those are not necessary. We are saying that we're going to remove all of that burden. For any SMME that earns 10 million and below, we remove that burden completely until you cross the 10 million threshold, so that you are able to create jobs, you're able to reinvest. You know why SMMEs are the biggest employers of undocumented foreign nationals? It's because of this. They're running away from tax, they're running away from compliance. But if we work with them and then ensure that when we give you these tax breaks, these exemptions from some of the laws that you can't comply with at this stage, we expect you to employ the indigenous people here. We expect you to expand and create jobs and be able to assist us in job creation. And in that way, what are we doing? We're expanding our tax base,
Okay.
And the fourth is, of course, technology is going to enable our economy.